Jared Polin, FronosPhoto.com, and have you ever wondered what goes on inside a Canon lens factory in Japan? Well, you don't have to worry anymore, as I got to go behind the curtain to see the bread being baked, or in this case, the lenses being polished, assembled, tested, and more. Now, I'm sure you're wondering how we ended up in Japan. Canon invited Steven and me, along with a handful of others, to tour Canon's headquarters, their flagship lens factory, as well as meet with executives and engineers to not only learn, but share our direct thoughts, and boy oh boy, did I share mine. I think many of us take for granted what goes into bringing a lens to life. It's not as simple as, hey, let's make a 100 to 300 2.8, and then a month later, you have a finished 100 to 300 2.8. It takes years to go from the idea stage to the drawing board to modeling, testing, manufacturing, and so many other countless steps before a final product finds its way into my camera bag. Here's an example of what Canon does in-house. Yes, the entire process is done in-house. Everything from gathering the raw material to creating the glass, the polishing, the molding, coating, bonding, and painting, to the housing and assembly, down to the final packaging as well as shipping. That's all pretty impressive. The 100 to 300 is one of the most incredible feats of engineering in the history of lenses, and we got to see it being put together. But before seeing that, I had to don a clean suit, special shoes, hairnet, beard net, face mask, and walk through an air sprayer to make sure I was good and clean to enter the factory. We got to see these feats of engineering being put together by hand. In fact, I got to drop an element into place in one of the lenses that was being put together. But seeing these skilled technicians bringing all of these parts together by hand to make a finished 100 to 300 was kind of insane. It shows you the amount of preparation, skill, and care that Canon puts into their lens making process. At this point, you might have thought that every lens these days was made and assembled by a machine, but that wouldn't be true. Canon does have machines that grind and polish elements for specific lenses, and we'll get into that a little bit later. But when it comes to the big glass, now we're talking broadcast TV type lenses and more, they are still ground and polished by hand by someone called a Meister. You know, because machines can't do what they do, at least not yet. These skilled artisans grind and polish lenses to exact standards. It's kind of insane to think that a person, in this case a Meister, can create something so perfect. They literally go from a raw piece of glass and with their skills and experience turn it into a usable element for a broadcast lens or one of those big ass telephotos. Now, a little bit of housekeeping. Canon had super strict restrictions on what parts of the process we could film due to the proprietary nature of their process and the machines that they use, so we did do our best to capture what we could, though we would have loved to show you everything, but we could only film roughly 10% of what we saw. Now, thankfully, Canon did supply us with enough images of the process and machines that we couldn't capture ourselves. Now, maybe in the future we'll get invited back without any restrictions so we can really show you the full process from start to finish through our eyes. Now, of course, machines play a major part in making sure supply can meet demand. Now, we got to see a machine that was making a few of the 17 elements that go into an RF 100mm macro. Now, some of these elements are concave and some of them are convex. The fact that Canon designed and manufactured the machines that make these elements is a testament to their extremely high standards. But their high standards go beyond just physically making the lenses. They torture test their products to make sure they will work in the most extreme of environments. Now, we got to walk into a test chamber for extreme heat and humidity, and on the flip side, a test chamber for freezing temperatures, aka a freezer. My nipples were popping. There's vibration tests and shock tests and compression tests, and even get this, final packaging drop tests, to make sure that your lens will still work even though the delivery person decided to punt it onto your front porch. Yeah, they have a machine that has a mechanical leg just for punting boxes. They actually don't, but they probably should. I had no idea that every single lens off the line, yes, every single one of them, is put through a rigorous 15-minute focus test against a proprietary chart, which is why it's blurred out for you. Now, all of this is to make sure that it meets Canon's high standards. Their goal is to make sure that if you pick up the first lens off the line or the 5,000th, that you will have parity across the board. Now, Canon was super transparent about the entire process. We sat with lens engineers who explained and demonstrated the different coatings and why they are important. We got to see and feel the different types of focus motors and even saw a cut open lens demonstrating dual nano lens actuators in action. I remember asking what the biggest problem the engineers are trying to solve with future lenses, and it's power consumption. They have to be super careful about how much power a lens uses because they could do some crazy things if they had unlimited power. Now, I don't know if that means new battery tech in the future or maybe batteries in the lenses. Maybe that could help, but you know what? I'm not an engineer. They're the engineers and they'll answer it. But it was great having unfettered access to the lens engineers. Now, I did try to sneak one past them and I was like, so what lens are you working on that you're most excited about? But it didn't work. They were on to me. Now, I want to thank Canon for allowing us to see how lenses are made from the inside. I hope you as a viewer were able to learn something new as well. What I'm most excited to see about in the future is if they took any of my lens recommendations and bring them to life. Now, if I do get to go back in the future, what would you like to see more of? Let me know down below. Thank you guys very much for watching. Jared Polin, FroKnowsPhoto.com. See ya.